United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Keck.
Here.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Ruzga.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney via Teams. is
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Finance Director.
Here.
Community Development Director.
Here.
Police Chief.
Here.
Fire Chief.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Any council member with a conflict of interest regarding an agenda item should disclose at this time. Public hearings. Public hearing for establishing an obsolete property rehabilitation district for 471 Water Street. A request has been received from Healthy Harbor Holdings LLC to establish an obsolete property rehabilitation district for the property located at 471 Water Street pursuant to Public Act 146 of 2000 as amended to facilitate the rehabilitation of this property. The affected property owner has received formal written notice of the public hearing, and the public will be provided with an opportunity to comment. No action is anticipated at the conclusion of this public hearing. However, this matter is on the agenda for consideration later this evening. Is there any public comment on this item? We'll close it. Oh, go ahead.
You certainly can. Good evening, City Council members. I want to first thank you for the opportunity to come in and tell you and formally introduce you to Manistee Performance Gym, which will be located at 471 Water Street. I also want to thank you for your consideration of the district. As I'll talk about briefly, it's very important to what we're trying to do in building our dream here in the city of Manistee. So my name is Brian Gutowski. This is my wife, Jackie. Jackie is a certified personal trainer and a certified nutrition coach. The story of Manistee Performance Gym, we've been quietly planning this for several years and then more loudly planning it over the last year or so. And the biggest thing for us was trying to find the right location and the right building to do this in. As you can imagine, with a gym, we're looking for an open building with a lot of space, and we wanted the right location, something that was visible and accessible not just to the residents, but people who might visit Manistee as well. So I looked at some different properties, but then when we toured 471 Water Street, it really was the perfect combination of a great location and the right type of building that we were looking for. Unfortunately, 471 Water Street, as you probably know, has sat vacant as basically personal storage for many years and had developed a significant roof leak. So what that has forced us to do is to invest a lot more in bringing that property, rehabbing it, and bringing it up into serviceable and usable condition. And so it's cost a considerable amount more than we initially anticipated. That's why I really appreciate the council's consideration of this district, because as we're not a large corporation. We're not backed by financial backers. We're a family of four with 2 young children who are investing in this small business here in the city of Manistee. So every dollar that we can save for as long as we can save it is really vital to the success of the dream we're trying to build here. And then just briefly, I won't take up a ton of your time, but at Manistee Performance Gym, we're trying to be more than just a workout facility. I think what our dream is to not just have it be someplace for people to work out, but to really cultivate a sense of community, not just within the facility, but also be invested within Manistee as a whole. Jackie and I have been passionate about fitness for many years now. We built our own gym at our house during the end of COVID. And so being able to bring this to our community is something we're both very passionate about and we're both very excited about. At our facility, the front room, or if you remember, as I do from the Thomas Interior days, the kind of showroom area that he had there will be cardio equipment, so treadmills, ellipticals, weightlifting machines. The rear room will have squat racks, deadlift platforms, a small turf patch for sled work. And then I think the thing that really sets us apart from other fitness facilities is our recovery room, which will be in the back. We'll have a male and female sauna, red light therapy, massage chairs, which I think is really going to set us apart in this space. So again, I just want to thank the council for your consideration of this and tell you how much we really appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this one? This public hearing is closed. Public hearing for obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate application from Healthy Harbor Holdings LLC. An application has been received from Healthy Harbor Holdings LLC for an obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate for the property at 471 Water Street pursuant to Public Act 146 of 2000 as amended. No action is anticipated at the conclusion of this public hearing. However, this matter is on the agenda for consideration later this evening. Any public comment on this one? Okay, this public hearing is closed. Okay, we have a few changes to the agenda. New business, item I, consideration of the sale of city-owned property, Renaissance Park Lot Number 1, and item K, consideration of appointment to the Downtown Development Authority are being removed from tonight's agenda. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. Any citizen correspondence to be distributed to council should provide items to city clerk prior to the start of the meeting or after the meeting has adjourned, limited to 5 minutes. Anybody with public comment?
There's a couple of them.
Is it on something that's on the agenda?
I haven't read the whole agenda, but I did make a packet for all the commissioners, and I wondered if you've received it.
A packet on what? What's the packet referring to?
The sign at the senior center
Okay, so you would be at the 5 minutes at the end of the meeting. 5 minutes at the end of the meeting.
at the end.
Yes. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Katie Gruenberg. I'm the County Planning Director, and I'm also the Project Manager for the Land Bank Authority. And I just wanted to take a minute to share my support for the zoning amendment that's coming before you tonight. I think the economy efficient dwellings is a step in the right direction to allow for more variety for housing types and potentially more affordable options, and to make valuable use of non-conforming lots. So I hope that you guys look favorably on that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered by city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval, any member of council may have an item removed and taken up during regular portion of the meeting. Items include approval of minutes, cash balances, revenue expenses, balance sheet, consideration of ordinance 26-01 to amend Chapter 650, anti-blight, and Chapter 606, animals, and repeal Chapter 415, open storage, disabled, inoperable junk, and abandoned motor vehicles, and Chapter 1454, dangerous, unsightly, or unsanitary conditions of the City of Manistee, Michigan codified ordinances. Notifications regarding next study session, consideration of proclaiming April as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month, consideration of proclaiming April 24th, 2026 Arbor Day in the City of Manistee. At this time, council could take action to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raditz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Keck,
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Now we are also going to, hold on a second, move up the report from the Housing Commission. So, Mark.
Good evening. I'm Karen Goodman, County Commissioner and Vice Chair of the City of Manistee Housing Commission. Just want to introduce, of course, you know Mark Schnacke, who has been our consultant in the past, it's been 3 years now. And he has brought us along quite well over the last 3 years. And our new member is our director, Shiloh War, who I am going to turn this whole presentation over to Mark and Shiloh so they can wow you with their ideas.
Shiloh, you have the clicker, right? I do. All right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to share a few slides with you for our annual report. Go to the second one. Oh, if you look at the first one, you can see a little bit of the improvements we did. We cleaned up the terrace and installed some solar lights. I think it looks pretty good at night. I'll let you know because I'm going to be doctorate across that in another month as well. So, So next, Board of Commissioners. Karen introduced us, but here's the board. We have one member that's not with us tonight, Sue Mychek, who is our resident commissioner that lives in the scattered site apartments. Next, Shiloh is the staff. There's some changes now. We're going backwards a year. So Lori, who did this presentation, is the former director. Shiloh's taking those reins now, but she'll be in a consulting role for a while.
Technically, she's been offered a role as a deputy director. So she's going to stay on for that time at least at that role, so we can transition over time and still maintain the progress that's been happening.
So, maintenance staff, we have 2 maintenance staff members right now, and there should be a third added hopefully sometime this year. One of the things that we did this past year was received a grant from the Community Foundation for a shoreline improvement feasibility study funded by the foundation. So we came up with a plan, Shiloh, which is the next slide, to better utilize the riverfront. We have such a great riverfront, but it's really inaccessible to the residents. There's really no good way to get to the shoreline. So we did this feasibility study that Spicer Group did with the grant from the foundation. So you can see we kind of created a river walk. I know Lori had worked with Bill a little bit on this process in the city. So keep going, Shiloh. Let's see, next one. There we go. So there's kind of some conceptual images of what it could look like. And of course, the big unknown is, where's the funding sources coming from? So I think that's the next challenge, and I think the estimate is approximately 1.8 million to do that. So that's Shiloh's challenge for this year, is to take on that task. So next slide is just some demographic information. So we have 275 folks that live within the Housing Commission's properties, and you can see just some average aggregate demographic information of all the properties. Of course, there's 167 units at Century Terrace and Harbor View and 47 scattered sites. Couple of things that we did last year: installed some deadbolt locks in all residents, did some tree removal, especially in some of the parking lots where there was some falling trees and limbs. The website is now functionable, and applicants can apply online, and you can see the website address. Occupancy is good. We're at a 98%. With 4 vacancies at CTHV and 1 vacancy within the scattered sites.
And in the scattered sites, the only vacancy currently has to do with the fire that happened. So there has been bids proposed for insurance purposes and such for procurement. So that's all moving forward, but that's the only vacancy in our public housing.
One of the issues that came to light last year is the flood that we had at Century Terrace. So I know we've talked with Bill and DPW Director Jeff about issues. So we're going to work together to try and come up with a solution to that. There's an 8-inch, I think, storm drain that drains the streets and the property, and so we have to figure out a better way to manage the water. So that's another project that Shiloh's going to get to work on this year. And then there's just some of the water just poured right in the main entrance of Century Terrace.
Feels like the storm drain probably was big enough for the property itself, but there's a lot of flow from the streets around it. It looks like it goes into that area, and it just seems like it's too much water for the current drain system. So it looks like.
Yes. So one of the big projects that we worked on this past year is we did an RFQ for development services, or for a development partner for the scattered sites. So we just in the March meeting selected Scenair Solutions to be our partner on the scattered sites. Now, this is a process that we'll go through. It'll be similar to the last process with Century Terrace and Harbor View. We want to do a RAD conversion, but we need to, and the commission did a very good job, I will say. They were thoughtful. They interviewed 3 different potential development partners, none of them of which were the last development partner. So there's just a little timeline that we hope to meet. I mean, it's pretty optimistic, but there's a lot of work to go on. I mean, and determine feasibility. And, you know, can we renovate some of the units, and can we construct new units? And if we can construct new units, we've been meeting with the ad hoc committee for housing, looking at potential sites to redevelop. So that's a process that we're working on, but we need to really figure out what the best approach is and what is really financially achievable in the process. So.
And the reason this is so important is because they're in Section 9 public housing now. And in that program, it's really hard to pull funding because it's not a constant flow of money. And so this RAG conversion transitions it over into PVRA, which is a different funding source, so that we can have constant flow of money so the banks will loan on the assets. So it is a big process and a lot of undertaking, but it's necessary to be able to get money from them to be able to maintain it.
Yeah, and it also opens us up to the capital markets, to private equity, private investment too. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shiloh. He's up.
Thanks, appreciate it. So anyway, Mayor and Council, nice to meet everybody. I'm only about a month and a half in, so really I've just been working on trying to see where everything's at, stabilize a few of the things that I can see, but really I'm just going to gather information base, trying to meet some people, make some new community relationship kind of type stuff. And with Lori still there and Mark still in the picture, you know, we can keep carrying forward, and I can kind of go in another direction, which is start to work with the public and try to maintain those relationships, or obtain and maintain those relationships. So still very much an informational gathering phase, trying to evaluate processes and procedures and such, and hopefully I can bring a bunch of those things to the table. I've only had one meeting with my commission, so I don't have a lot to present tonight just because I haven't had a lot of time to present to them. But I do have some ideas, and right now it's just being patient, listening, and learning. So it's a pleasure to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to say though, since the years of where we moved past executive directors, and you guys have changed this place around, great. I mean, I'm impressed with everything you are doing over there. I go to all the meetings when I can, and it's really something that's what's happened over there.
I'm excited to follow in their footsteps. It sounds like they've done a lot, for sure.
I know for Shiloh, he's been working really hard, so.
Thank you.
you.
Consideration of establishing an obsolete property rehabilitation district for property located at 471 Water Street. A request has been received from Healthy Harbor LLC to establish an obsolete property rehabilitation district for the property located at 471 Water Street pursuant to Public Act 146 of 2000 as amended to facilitate redevelopment of the property. A public hearing on the request was held earlier in this meeting. At this time, council will take action to approve a resolution establishing an obsolete property rehabilitation district for the property located at 471 Water Street. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
So I was asked by the, sorry. Mayor?
Sorry, I didn't see you go up there.
No, I was asked by the city manager to add a little more context, especially as we moved into the next agenda item to actually approve the certificate. This district is within the Downtown Development Authority, and so from a tax implementation standpoint, it's really affecting the Downtown Development Authority, not the city's tax base in any way, by having it frozen at the taxable value where it's at currently. So that is why the DDA made a motion and recommendation on this in our last meeting in March, and you have been provided with a memo that I drafted up that gave a little more context. Additionally, this is the first tax incentive that's been discussed since we approved the new tax incentive policy that the city implemented. I believe it was back in the fall. And so kind of an exciting opportunity to do a test run through our scoring matrix. Bill Gamble and Ed Bradford and I have met, and I did the scorecard for this. As Brian said, this isn't a big corporation coming in, investing, millions of dollars into, a multifamily housing unit or anything like that. It is a local entrepreneur trying to make their business work. And when we review their business plan and the way revenues scale up, this Oprah is definitely needed to just make that margin a little bit greater and being able to reinvest into the business that kind of needs to happen in those first couple of years of starting up a business. And so the DDA recommends the approval of the Oprah certificate. The board realizes how important this property is in the district. You know, the vacancies that we have in downtown, one of our goals is to eliminate as many as possible. And so the Downtown Development Authority is willing to lose some tax, lose some future tax revenue in light of filling a vacancy, because we realize the burden of this investment, the size of this investment coming from a small entrepreneur and the impact it's going to have on the rest of the district, especially in relation to projects like the streetscape and a couple other redevelopment projects that we have or soon will have coming down the pipeline on the west side of River Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I guess the only thing I would like to bring up is, I know it said 12 years, but looking at our budgets, and, I get the DDA thing, but they need money too, changing it to 10 years. That's the only thing I could say. I mean, certainly believe that we should support them, but I'm not sure going out 12 years is.
Aren't they asking for 8?
Yeah, the recommendation is 8 years, the next item.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know where I got 12 from.
Okay.
We'll take 10 though.
Yeah.
12, going once?
Okay. Are we good on this one? Okay. Laura, will you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Keck,
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Consideration of application for obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate from Healthy Harbor Holdings LLC for the property located at 471 Water Street. An application has been received from Healthy Harbor Holdings LLC for an obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate for the property located at 471 Water Street pursuant to Public Act 146 of 2000, as amended, with the property being located within the DDA. The Oprah incentive is limited to new tax revenues that would otherwise be captured by the DDA rather than the city's general tax revenue. A public hearing on the request was held earlier in this meeting. This item could be considered if council took action to establish the Oprah district in previous agenda item. At this time, council could take action to approve a resolution to approve obsolete property rehabilitation certificate application for Healthy Harbor LLCs for the property located at 471 Water Street for a period of 8 years. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on this one? No? Heather or Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Keck,
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Okay. Consideration of Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act Memorandum of Agreement, Healthy Harbors Holding LLC. Earlier this evening, a public hearing was held on proposed obsolete property rehabilitation exemption certificate for the property located at 471 Water Street and owned by Healthy Harbor Holdings LLC. As part of the approval process for this project, a memorandum of agreement between the city and the property owner needs to be approved. At this time, council will take action to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Healthy Harbors Holding LLC and further authorize the mayor and clerk to execute this agreement. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Keck,
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Rezga.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Consideration of Budget Amendment 2026-2 for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. The City of Manistee is required by state law to ensure that actual expenditures do not exceed budgeted amounts over the course of the current fiscal year. Unanticipated and unbudgeted events and/or city council-approved expenditures have or will occur. The proposed budget amendment addresses expenditures associated with these events to ensure compliance with the state statutes regarding appropriations. At this time, council can take action to adopt Budget Amendment 2026-2 for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes. I'd like to know more about this fire deal that's in the budget. How can we approve that without knowing more facts?
So this is part of that resolution that council passed the other, last council meeting. The other townships who are talking with us to form the fire district also passed the resolution. Part of that was an allocation of 5,000, so we have 5 entities who contributed 5,000, so this is putting that money into an account to be able to use towards establishing the fire district.
Okay, are we supposed to end up discussing this budget tonight? Or passing the whole budget?
So this is just the budget amendment for the current fiscal year, so we've already received some funds from Stronach Township, so this is basically just amending the budget to accept those, to put those funds in, basically have a revenue and expenditure for this new thing, because this was something that was established over the course of the year that wasn't part of the budget last year. So this isn't the proposed budget for 2027. This is a budget amendment to the current budget.
So what are we approving here on this? I see professional services. What are
Right.
the professional services?
So so basically you're putting the 25,000 for a consultant to work on the fire district project. So they're contributing, we talked about things like a website, things like that, for information sharing. So this is 5,000 that communities have given towards this project that the city is basically housing and working with the entities.
Because basically the 25,000 is the city's acting as a fiduciary for the group, correct?
Right, correct, and we've contributed 5.
Yeah, so the 25,000 is total, the professional services is the total.
Right, okay.
All right.
I have a question. I guess I'm curious why, we had significant property sales this year, and why there isn't a budget amendment for that, around like 300,000 in revenues, and where that was placed.
Okay. So that was put into local streets, and Ed can talk about this. This is just a general fund, but I guess to the point, I don't know if it goes into a general fund revenue off the bat.
So we don't do budget amendments for revenue. I do projections for revenue, but the proceeds from the property sales first go to the general fund and then they get transferred to the local street fund. So you may see one coming up for the transfers out. I think the first one that we did earlier had that, but if not, there'll be one before the end of the fiscal year to account for those transfers.
I know this has come up before, but why does it go to the local streets funds?
Because there was a resolution by council to do that.
But I couldn't find it. If somebody could send that to me?
Sure.
Because I did find where there was one instance with the land sale, council moved to move that sale, but it wasn't like a continuing resolution.
Yeah, we can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
We good?
Yeah.
Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Keck,
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski,
Yes,
Councilmember Ruzga.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Consideration of approving resolution for an addition to the Act 51 street map. State of Michigan requires additions and deletions to the official Act 51 map on an annual basis. The street administrator has performed an audit of the map and has identified a correction. At this time, council could take action to approve the resolution to add Lighthouse Circle into the city's street network and include on the Act 51 map. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
where's Lighthouse Circle?
It's in Lighthouse Landings, the condominium development at First and Cherry Street. And if you look at the map on your screen, it's the last phase, phase 4, that was added. Council accepted that, not sure back then why it wasn't added to the map. Simply when we were doing Paisley ratings last fall, the crew that was doing that noticed that that wasn't in the map, and so this is just correcting that.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Keck?
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruzga?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Consideration of approving a license agreement for the right-of-way encroachment. The redevelopment of 141 Washington Street requires installation of a new electric and gas meter banks. Project architects have identified the north face of the building as the only feasible location for this equipment. As proposed, the installation would encroach into the Lincoln Street right-of-way. To address this, the city attorney has prepared a license agreement authorizing the encroachment. At this time, council could take action to approve a license agreement with 141 Washington Street LLC and further authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the document. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. So when I look at these pictures, it shows Lincoln Street, and Jeff's memo shows Lincoln Street. But if you go to page 107, it says Washington Street. So I just want your assurance it's Lincoln Street. Page 107, where the last drawing is, Exhibit B, right there. It shows Washington Street.
It should be Lincoln.
Okay.
Good catch, yep.
So it's Lincoln Street.
It is Lincoln Street.
That's all I wanted to know.
Two of my favorite presidents, but easy to mix up. Thanks, Laney.
Well,
Good catch.
made them earlier, boo-boo.
Anything else on this one?
Nope.
Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan? Councilmember Keck?
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruzga?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Consideration of approving an educational affiliation agreement with West Shore Community College. The educational affiliation agreement with West Shore Community College will establish the Manistee Fire Department as a clinical training site for students enrolled in West Shore Community College's Emergency Medical Services Program. The agreement outlines rules, student eligibility, and safety requirements, and confirms that students participate solely in a supervised educational capacity. At this time, council could take action to approve the educational affiliation agreement with West Shore Community College and further authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the document. Is there a motion?
I'll make, and I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. I think this is amazing. We have such a great paramedic and EMS team, and what a great opportunity to get perspective of medical care workers into our city. So, thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Amazing work.
Thank you. Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Keck?
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruzga?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Please. Consideration of zoning ordinance Z 26-01 to amend the Manistee City zoning ordinance. The city has identified both a shortage of housing and a need for diverse housing options. There are a number of existing lots with the largest residential district that are currently unbuildable due to nonconforming with minimum lot size requirements. The Community Development Department has coordinated with the County Planning Department and Tiny Developers Incorporated to explore opportunities for smaller, more attainable housing options in the city. The proposed zoning ordinance would allow for construction of smaller homes on nonconforming lots in the R2 district. Economy-efficient housing overlay amendments as follows to allow for smaller minimum living areas and nonconforming lots in the R2 district, Z 26-01. Amend Article 2 definitions by adding economy-efficient dwelling. Amend Section 300D by adding economy-efficient housing overlay district. Amend Table 3-1 by adding subsection L. Amend Section 301 official zoning map by adding economy-efficient housing overlay district. Amend Section 903A by adding subsection 1. Amend by adding Section 905 economy-efficient housing overlay district. Amend Section 2301 by adding subsection H. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. If this ordinance is introduced at this time, it could be adopted at the next regular meeting. At this time, council could take action to introduce zoning ordinance Z 26-01. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I brought a little presentation. Thank you, Mayor, for reading that lengthy piece. This is something that's been in discussion for quite some time prior to my starting here at the city. This came to the Planning Commission for the first time a little bit over a year ago, last winter. And I brought it to you guys at the joint meeting this past December. I'm going to go through a bit of the language. I think that with multiple things happening and multiple discussions happening about this tiny housing initiative at once, I want to make sure that everything is clear what this ordinance would do and how it could affect our community, and make sure that that's clear. To start, again, this tiny conversation has been happening for a while, but I think it's important to look at how it fits each community differently. I think that tiny and building smaller housing is becoming a best practice in pushing new housing initiatives forward and making housing a priority. That being said, it doesn't necessarily fit every community, and so this was a problem identified separately that I think the smaller housing could be a solution for. Here is a map of the non-conforming parcels across the city in respect to the 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. As I don't have a map of R2, you guys saw that at the joint meeting, them compared. Most of these do fall in the R2 district. One thing, so this specific map, you guys got two different maps in your packet. This is the 2,500 to 6,000 square feet. This is what the actual minimum language we are putting forward for lot size is 2,500 square feet. However, we do have a 20-foot minimum width and then 5-foot setbacks on the sides. And so ideally we are looking at more of the 3,000 square foot lots, half-size lots, which is what we commonly see across the city. But by putting it at 2,500, that accounts for lots that maybe don't have 100 feet in the length, but they do meet that 30-foot width requirement, just to be able to account for additional lot sizes. Looking at the housing need, we did have a housing assessment done by Housing North back in 2023. It was a couple years ago, but I think it is safe to say that these numbers are still pretty accurate and reflecting what the community needs. We identified a rental gap of 525 units and a for sale gap of just over 1,300 units. Looking at building smaller, I think that the ideal range here is going to be middle income, sort of that missing middle idea, looking at 80 to 120% AMI, so area medium income. Again, looking at sort of building the square footage, who could that be ideal for, and what market are we targeting? Just based off some numbers off Google and just generally building a pretty basic residential home, you're looking at roughly $200 per square foot, up to probably about $300 if you're building slightly nicer. Looking at a 440 square foot house, that's our minimum for single family. That puts you at a home price of about $136,000 if you're looking at 60% of your cost being that building fee. Upwards to the current minimum 960 square feet, that would be about $298,000 home price. And then down we have the 80 to 120% AMI affordability rate for a for sale unit, which would be $201,000 to $302,000. If you bumped that building cost up to 300 square foot per unit, you would be looking at $220,000 to $480,000 between that 440 and 960 square feet range. So it does pretty well fall into that 80 to 120% AMI range, which is what ideally we'd be targeting here. Goals and objectives. So sort of combining that housing need with the identified lots. We'd be addressing those lots that are currently unbuildable, bringing new housing options to the city by building smaller and addressing that specific group, building more affordable by building smaller, reducing building costs. We ideally would target these towards potentially younger populations looking to get out of rentals, purchase their first home, retiring populations looking to downsize. These are going to be smaller units, and acknowledging that this is sort of who we would be targeting. Again, bringing in younger crowd and then also retaining older populations post-retirement and having those housing options available. Why an overlay? So again, this has been in discussion for a long time, and the overlay direction came from that non-conforming lot. I don't think that at this time there's a desire to reduce these minimums in the R2 district or in residential districts overall, and that's where I come in saying that I think this is a good opportunity to fit the community needs as they stand right now. If it is something that is beneficial, that could always be looked at. Is this something we want to expand into R2 as a whole? But by identifying these lots currently and only applying this to those non-conforming parcels that are already smaller in existence, I think that it fits two needs at once for the community. So I gave you a pretty long list of amendments. Just a general breakdown here of what each of those would actually be doing. For the most part, adding the definition, that's a separate amendment in itself. Anytime that R2 district standards are listed, we have adding just a subsection to refer you back to this specific ordinance, adding it to the table of land uses, adding it to the map, adding it to the short-term rental section, and then adding it to the actual R2 zoning section as well, which would be the largest amendment, which is section 905. And then I've got each of the actual amendments coming forward broken down. This is the bulk of the language, that section 905 that we would be adding. Purpose and applicability, this would be to address non-conforming lots specifically, allow for these only on those non-conforming lots using this new definition of economy efficient housing, targeting new build homes and duplexes with the newly provided setbacks. I do have it in there that anything that is not explicitly stated in these new amendments refers back to what R2 originally says. So lot coverage, any accessory structures, things like that are going to just refer you back to what R2 says. And then again, just stating that these are existing non-conforming lots, not necessarily being able to take a current standard size lot, splitting that in two to build two houses. I think that this is directly targeting the issue that we face currently. Dimensional and setback standards, like I said earlier, we'd be reducing the minimum lot size to 2,500 square feet. It's currently 6,000. A number of the lots are at roughly 3,000 square feet right now. They're just standard half-size lots. Like I said before, by doing 2,500, that would sort of give some lenience to lots that maybe don't meet the length to quite hit that 3,000 square feet, but they have the 30-foot width. Minimum living area, this went back and forth. I think originally it was 240 square feet at the joint meeting. We bumped it up to 400 and the Planning Commission bumped it up further to 440 for single family and 400 per unit for duplexes. We reduced parking by one spot, so right now it says you need 2 parking spaces. We reduced that to 1 per unit, so 1 for a single family, 2 for a duplex. Our setbacks are 5 foot on each side. This is a reduction, 15 feet in the front, 10 foot in the rear. This is remaining, I believe, the same. And then minimum width of 20 feet, again, meaning you need essentially to have a 30-foot lot to apply for this overlay. Permitted uses, we're looking at single family and duplexes. Again, this was something that was up for quite a bit of discussion, and I'm happy to talk about this more with any questions, but I think this is a really good best practice to put forward and to put forward in this specific limited sense. And so this does allow for a bit more regulation on that. Currently, there are very few lots where you can actually build a duplex in the city, and I often have people call and ask, and I have to, explain to them that it is going to be essentially a $2,000 process between the variance and the special use permit, and I find that people often end up looking elsewhere and are really stuck on that duplex idea. So again, this could be a way to slowly introduce that and be able to monitor it. The last section is short-term rentals. This was another thing that bounced back and forth between discussion a lot. Ideally, this is a housing initiative, and I think that the concern was by allowing these smaller houses, a wealthy developer could come in and very easily build a large number of these, fill our cap of short-term rentals, and not allow this to go to housing. And so, just by including that in there, the current ordinance states that tiny houses are not eligible. We're not using the tiny house language. This is the economy efficient language, just slightly different. We don't quite meet, I don't think we meet the true definition of a tiny house for minimum square footage, and so adding the economy efficient dwelling in that section as well ensures that these do not apply to that program. And that's all I've got, and I'm sure you've got questions.
Yes. How many young people starting out can afford to use one of these homes? Typically, how many older people can afford to buy one of these houses?
Let me go back to the income table. So 80 to 120% AMI is $60,000 to $90,000 a year in income, roughly. And of course, you know, this is situational and depends on every person, but I think that is what the math says, and it, again, am I looking to buy a house right now? No, but in a few years, will I probably be in that range to purchase a smaller home? It is very likely.
A lot of people moving in here are trying to find homes, and they can't afford that.
Well, and I think the other thing is that, and this is something that I've shared a couple times, but in doing this, it is sort of that missing middle income aspect, and so people who are currently in rentals and looking to move out of rentals maybe opens up those rentals for those who can't afford to buy a home yet. And it is very hard to find a rental in the city right now, and I think that there is a need for that, and this could transition people out of rentals who are ready to invest in a property and want to, and fall in this income range and could potentially afford to build something small and open those apartments up to younger families or younger individuals looking to make that transition.
I'm agreeing with you, especially with the duplex. You have the opportunity to own your side of the house and be able to rent out long-term the other side of the house, or to have a co-housing arrangement too. I'm so grateful that the commission and everyone involved allowed that duplex option so that that can allow homeowners to exist side by side.
And I think the duplex is good for the rental aspect too, even if they're both rentals.
Yeah.
There is still that renting need, and so a lot of duplexes do serve as rentals in the city, and that is really common that both units, at least both, if not one, is being rented out. And this could be a good opportunity to provide more of those, again, because it is really hard to find. I don't know if there is a lot out there that exists to build a duplex right now in R2.
Well, Traverse City went through a lot of that. If you read the papers about a year ago, they were having a lot of trouble trying to put duplexes and single families, and they went up there. So I think duplexes aren't gonna work. And has anybody checked with people in the neighborhoods? A lot of neighbors do not like these things.
Well, I don't know that people have an option in the neighborhood. I wasn't given a choice in my neighborhood when a duplex was built.
No, but just so you get some idea of what's going on.
Well, why wouldn't I want a duplex?
I don't want to live alongside of somebody.
Because, well, then you don't have a duplex. That doesn't mean that the guy across the street doesn't want a duplex.
Well, everybody's entitled to what they want.
I have what might be a really stupid question, and I don't know where the answer is going to come from here. How did these become non-conforming lots?
Just in the way that they were platted and divided, and then the ordinance was written that they
for 100 years, this town has been very large houses. Why are they all of a sudden not able to hold that large house?
Our ordinance is from 2006,
Okay.
and so I don't,
That answers a lot.
I think before
Okay.
that, it was maybe a 1990 ordinance, and both of those had the 6,000 square feet minimum at some point. I mean, most of the houses in the city are far older than that, and so zoning just probably wasn't in place or enforced, and those lots were divided to be half size, just to fit more houses likely, and
And when you say one parking spot per, is that a driveway, or are you preparing the roadway to be able to accommodate
off-street
that?
would have to be a driveway.
Okay.
And that's what the ordinance says for new builds right now, is you
Okay.
need to provide off-street parking. And something I didn't mention, and you talked about the smaller lots, and I appreciate Katie speaking, and in part, and she has been a big conversation and a big supporter of this through the land bank, is that a lot of those lots that the land bank has acquired through the blight enforcement are these smaller lots that you can't build on otherwise, and so.
And these are going to come on an as requested basis? I mean, somebody's not, like you say, we don't want.
It would be subject to the same review process,
Okay,
and so they would come
I,
forward
as a
with a
builder,
plan.
or I, as an owner or looking for a new home, I come and say, I'd like to buy that lot.
Yeah.
We're not building on that lot first and then trying to sell.
No, and that stands the case right now, and that's why we end up telling a lot of people that this lot is too small, or
Okay.
or I'm buying this old house and I want to redo it in the future. You might want to take into consideration your limitations in that, and that's a pretty frequent conversation we do have.
So I don't have a problem with the whole tiny home, but I don't understand why we.
Economic efficient.
No, yeah, okay, economic efficient, you're right.
I don't like the sounds of tiny home myself, but.
Well,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
know.
not, why we wouldn't take the problem we have with duplexes. You know, I want the city to be able to have houses on these non-conforming lots. But I gotta tell you, this duplex thing, I don't understand why we wouldn't look at making it easier to build duplexes on regular lots instead of putting them in a tiny home lot. I don't understand I think it's a negative to have a small lot and build even a smaller units rather than trying to make it a better option, if that's a need, on regular lots.
So George from Tiny did bring sort of that proposal to the Planning Commission in partnership with this, and I, from a general standpoint, did not get that they were super interested in pursuing that. I also think that, and again, you know, 440 and 400 are very strict minimums, and so I don't foresee many being built exactly to that size. And a lot of communities who implement these initiatives set maximums, and so to be an economy efficient dwelling, you need to fall between these two, and we don't have that. It's really subject to the setbacks, and so you very well could build much larger than 440 square feet or an 800 square foot duplex. It's just that those are minimums, and I think, again, I want to push the best practice idea forward, and that allowing duplexes, and again, this would still minimize the parcels and where duplexes could be placed. I know that George from Tiny has a couple of sample duplexes that could fit on these smaller lots that he has shared, where they have their own driveways and they seem separate, and he's got one off Kosciuszko that's on a corner, and it's a land bank property, and so from each different side, it really doesn't look like a duplex.
You know, I think this is one of the issues that's been plaguing, this city for at least the last 3 or 4 years that I've been on council. Every single candidate forum, it's bringing jobs, it's housing, it's childcare, are three of the big things. And I think it's a fantastic idea. I love the overlay idea, instead of just making it a blanket R2, do what you want. The work on this that everybody's done is impressive, outstanding, I'd say, well thought out. And there's no perfect solution for the housing crisis or the housing shortage. But kind of like the short-term rental, it's a start. We can alter it if we need to, but we need to, I'm going to use a phrase I hate using when I hear the video, kick the can down the road yet again. Let's not do that. Let's pass this and let's get this going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Laura, would you please take roll? Thank you, Patty.
Councilmember Raditz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Keck,
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski,
No,
Councilmember Ruska.
No, only because of the duplexes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Consideration of the sale of city-owned property, 6th Avenue, parcel 51-211-105-01. The city has received an offer to purchase city-owned property, 6th Avenue, parcel 51211-105-01 for $80,000. The city is requesting a utility riverwalk easement to eventually connect to the riverwalk to the east of the property. At this time, council could take action to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the purchase agreement and all other necessary documents to finalize the sale of the city-owned property, 6th Avenue, parcel 51-211-105-01, contingent on city attorney final approval. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz?
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Keck?
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruzga?
Yes.
Motion
Thank
passed.
you. Consideration of applications to boards and commissions. The city clerk has taken action to advertise vacancies on the Compensation Commission, Downtown Development Authority, Neighborhood Restoration and Beautification Commission, Tree Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals. Mayor and manager appointments require a motion, second, and council voted support. Nominees for council appointments do not require a second. After all nominations are made, council votes on the nominees until one nominee receives a majority of support. The following applications have been received: the Neighborhood Restoration and Beautification Commission, 2 vacancies, term ending 4/30/29. The purpose to identify, research, and recommend opportunities and resources to help prevent, remediate, and eliminate blight and help beautify the city of Manistee. Council appointment, we have Mark Whitliff, 363 10th Street, and Andrew Stafford, 275 First Street. At this time, manager and council could take action to make appointments noted. The NRBC, 2 vacancies. Is there a nomination?
I'll make a nomination for Andrew Stafford.
Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz?
Stafford?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Stafford.
Mayor Sullivan?
Stafford.
Councilmember Keck?
Stafford.
Councilmember Grabowski?
Stafford.
Councilmember Ruzga?
Stafford.
Thank you. Is there a second nomination?
I'd like to nominate Whitliff, 363 10th Street, for the NRBC, term ending 4/30/29.
Thank you. Laura, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Raddatz?
Whitliff?
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Whitliff.
Mayor Sullivan?
Whitliff.
Councilmember Keck?
Whitliff.
Councilmember Grabowski?
Whitliff.
Councilmember Ruzga?
Whitliff.
Thank you. Introduction of the fiscal year 2026 budget. Mr. Bradford?
All right, Mayor and members of council, today we are giving the first look at the City of Manistee budget proposed for fiscal year 2027. Just a reminder, tonight is basically just to kind of introduce the budget and go through a high-level overview. We've got a number of work sessions and other opportunities for council discussion and to receive input from the public, and we'll go through that timeline at the back once we get to the last slide. So just a quick overview of the entire citywide budget, which comprises all of the funds, including the general fund and the utility funds and enterprise funds and things like that. The total budget this year is about $24.2 million, which is an increase of about $753,000 or about 3.2%. You can kind of see the pie charts. Those are also in your budget that show the city budget by area. Obviously, the biggest piece of the city's budget is the general fund. And then, by type of expense, our operating expenses are about 77%. And that's to be expected because the city provides services and you need people to deliver those services. So that's why the operating expense is the biggest part of the overall city budget. So continuing on this, assessed value increased this year by $31.6 million or about 7.8%. That's on the heels of last year where it increased by over $30 million. So really over the last 4 to 5 years, we've had, at least in my tenure, an unprecedented run-up in the assessed value of properties. And that's because there's been a tremendous real estate market over the last several years, and there's been lots and lots of sales that drive those assessments. Taxable value increased by 12.6 million, or about 4.6%. That's a result of those sales and uncappings, but also the limit in taxable value increases for people that are in their home, their primary residences. Their taxable value can only rise at the rate of 5% or inflation, whichever is less. This year we had a millage decline in the general fund of about 0.184 down to 17.6850. That was due to a Headley override, which we'll talk about a little bit more. You can see the chart on the right there. It shows the millage rates going back to 1995 for total city millage, whether that's refuse, general fund, or any voted debt. And we're at the lowest point in that time frame, so going back about 30 years. The rate increases are in line with the rate sufficiency study. For an average homeowner, it'll be about a 3.5% overall increase. There's no rate increase proposed this year for refuse or recycling because the fund is doing very well, which is a welcome relief, I think, for the residents. We have about $8.5 million in capital improvements, and this budget proposes reducing full-time headcount by 1 FTE. This is new this year. I tried to introduce it. It's a citywide budget health scorecard, so to speak. It kind of gives council an idea of where the different funds are, and it runs from excellent to good to average to poor to terrible. We don't have that, fortunately. But in my tenure here at the city, we've always had challenges with different budgets over the years. But with the exception of, I would say, the general fund, which is still average, most of our funds from a financial standpoint, looking at different metrics, are doing quite well. And we can talk about that a little bit more when we go through each of these. But I thought this was just a quick snapshot to help you and the public kind of get a gauge where, at least from the finance director's perspective, the different funds are doing from a financial standpoint. Okay, general fund overview. So the balance comes in that was proposed to be at 8.47 million. However, there were, again, this year, as there was last year, significant adjustments that were needed to balance the ledger. So when all the department heads put together their budget requests, I total them up. We double check and make sure there's nothing double counted. But there was about a $354,000 deficit when all those requests came in. So the department heads and the city manager met over 2 days to kind of go through the budgets and make adjustments to assumptions. Maybe there's things that I didn't get or things that got left out or more information. So it's kind of a brainstorming session. And through that process, we were able to balance the budget through a mix of revenue increases and expense decreases. As I mentioned, the budget does reduce 1 FTE position, and the total general fund employment is at 49.5. I want to emphasize that for now, this budget maintains services, and that's important because that was one of council's priorities. And the general fund health rating from a financial standpoint, I would say, is about average. So key issues, there's an issue page in the budget that talks about general fund sustainability. And given what's going on with the environment, it's my opinion and the city manager's opinion that the general fund budget is becoming unsustainable and has what's called a structural imbalance. It's the beginning of it, but it's going to get worse. The definition of a structural imbalance is that the organizational structure and or the services being provided by the city can no longer be sustained by the available revenues. And when you have a structural imbalance, you either have to bring revenues up or you have to decrease your expenses to get those two in line with each other. We have several revenue issues. That's one of the primary causes. We've had Headley rollbacks in 5 of the last 6 years. And that, again, is due to the way the state of Michigan structures local units of government's finances, but it's also directly related to the number of property sales where we have and the number of uncappings that we have. When we have those, that gets held against you, you don't get to realize that additional revenue through the formula. You have to roll back your millage rate. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The state support for local units of government in the form of revenue sharing has been and continues to be inadequate. We are still well below the amount of revenue sharing that the city received in 2001. We're getting less money from the state of Michigan now than we got in 2001, and it's 25 years later. The other piece of that, the other sources of revenue, because the millage, which is affected by the Headley, and the revenue sharing are the vast majority of the general fund revenues. The other sources are doing kind of okay, but they're variable and they're also constrained. There's only so much we can do with those. So we kind of have, on the revenue side, some challenges. On the expense side, we've got a number of issues as well. So in the labor market, with the high inflation that we've had since 2020, there's just been a natural creep up in wages because it's been demanded by the unions through negotiations, and also we've had to increase some wages to be competitive to acquire employees, whether it's police, fire, or what have you. Licensed people in the water and sewer department, those positions are in high demand and there's not a big enough supply. We've had health insurance and pension expense increases. And like I said, the commodity and supply inflation has been up about 25% since 2020. And equipment purchases especially got hit hard by that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the motor pool. The city provides very high levels of service, similar to what you would expect in a larger community. We hear that all the time. People are amazed that you can get your brush picked up and get your leaf bags done, and how responsive the DPW is, and how great the police department is and the fire department. And I think there's two reasons for that. One is a historical artifact. Our service level and our service model kind of evolved when this community was much larger. I mean, we were a city of 20,000 people at one point, and we're down to 6,200. And also kind of out of necessity, because what we see in Manistee County is, because it's a rural county, there's just fewer county services than there might be in a more urbanized county. And there's also fewer private service options. And so the city kind of becomes a service provider of last resort in many instances. However, with the structural imbalance, not all priorities can be funded. Excuse me. Nor services maintained when that structural imbalance exists.
Yeah.
So the last sentence that we have here, this is in the budget document itself, and I'll just read it because I think it's really important. Absent a significant inflow of new and sustainable, not one-time operating revenue, the structural imbalance that has been building will get worse. This will require adjustments to the workforce, services provided, and/or outside services funded. The beginning of these adjustments can be seen in the proposed budget, where general fund employment was reduced by 1 FTE and 2 seasonal park positions were eliminated. Future headcount reduction is likely inevitable and should be expected, again, absent some changes in the revenue situation. And I don't want that to scare anybody, but I do want to make sure that council is aware of that. We did go through a very similar situation as we're having right now, right after the Great Recession in 2008. If you look at the area of this chart that's highlighted from 2008 to 2012, we lost a significant number of employees. And that wasn't by choice. That was because we couldn't afford them, because of the crash in the property values and the extreme strain on the city's budget. Our general fund workforce was reduced by about 12% over that time period. And fortunately, the vast majority of that reduction in headcount was through attrition, not through laying people off. That's always the preferred way to do it. If somebody retires, you just don't fill the position, you restructure to accommodate. And that's what was done. And then you can see it was very flat for over a decade. And then we did have a spike more recently where we brought some services that we had outsourced back in-house. But this is something that the city has been through before. Let's talk a little bit about general fund revenue. Again, we are having continued slow revenue growth, about 2.5% overall in the general fund. Property taxes, so we did have a Headley rollback, and that caused a loss of about 1.1% of our operating millage this year, which equates to about $48,000 annually. The city charter authorizes the city to levy 20 mills. Because of the state statutes, that's been rolled back over the time. So now we're only levying about 82.7%. So what that's saying is we basically lost 20% of our taxing ability because of cumulative effect of Headley rollbacks. Our millage has been reduced by about 1.23 mil, or about 7% since 2021. And you can see that on the graph on the right-hand side there, the part that I have highlighted in the oval. I mean, that's reductions in our millage rate because of those 5 Headley rollbacks. And that equates to about $320,000 annually that we don't have because of those rollbacks. The budget has an issue page that talks about a Headley override. We're not suggesting a Headley override. That would be something that you'd have to take to the voters. But it is an option to recapture some of that lost taxing power that the city has experienced. Continuing on the revenue, just to kind of take a little bit deeper dive, our interest revenue is expected to decline a little bit this year as the Federal Reserve has cut interest rates. That trend is expected to slow but continue. Our revenue sharing is expected to decline primarily because of the funding formula for the new street program. It did impact some of the sales taxes that fund revenue sharing. And so those are expected to go down. You can see that chart on the right. That tracks historical revenue sharing. The blue line that trends up is constitutional. That is guaranteed by the Michigan Constitution. The red line is what's controlled by the Michigan legislature. It's called statutory revenue sharing. And you can see how that has dropped and never recovered. And so the combination of those two, again, is less than what we were getting in 2001. Our marijuana revenue is expected to increase this year because we did get a new 5th license back. We had lost one of those licenses, and that did negatively impact the budget last year. However, there is significant market uncertainty both on a statewide basis because the market's totally saturated, and also here in the Manistee, and we realistically expect to support 5 retail outlets for an extended period of time. Nobody has that aim. I personally don't think that will happen, but for this year, hopefully we'll get that 5th retail license and get credit for that. We're getting a little bit lower personal property tax reimbursement because of the formula that the state put into effect over 10 years ago. Some of that's starting to roll off now. However, in this year's budget, we did try to get creative. This last item here is one of the reasons we were able to bring in a balanced budget, and give a lot of credit to the city manager and to Chief Glass working with Central Wellness, where hopefully there'll be a memorandum of understanding coming to council here shortly that will talk about reimbursing the city for the cost of an officer plus some of their equipment to kind of be what I'll call a mental health officer. I think Josh calls it a crisis intervention officer. It's not a new position, but it funds or reimburses the city for one of its existing positions. And that will be, presumably well over $100,000 a year. So that was a big piece of that additional revenue that you saw when we balanced the budget. So kudos to them for being creative. And it's modeled after what they're doing in Benzie County, and I think many of the communities northwest Michigan are going to be looking at doing similar things. Moving over to the expense side, I just kind of run through the highlights here. Again, it maintains services. We talked about the headcount reduction. The operating budgets for the general fund departments are starting to become very tight because over the last 2 years they've had to make reductions, but the inflationary pressures are not going away. The Council Compensation Commission recommendations from previous were put into place this year. There were union contractual increases. There were MERS pension cost increases. And this last one here, I'll talk about the health insurance cost increase, just came in a couple weeks ago, and it's at 28.1%. Well, obviously, that's not going to work. The budget builds in 10% split, half between employees and half between the city. And our health insurance agent is working on getting us some different quotes and seeing if we can bring something in more reasonable. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Street light costs continue to rise. I don't know if you just noticed Consumers Energy had a $200+ million rate increase that they're pushing through, but the rates have been going up consistently every year. We have LED lights, we do what we can, but the street light cost does go up. One thing that the budget did do, which was a council priority, is to maintain partnerships. You can see the organizations mentioned there. We've maintained funding for all of those, except for we did drop our last little contract with Housing North. That's not proposed to be renewed. And the Saints did ask for a funding increase, but that was not, didn't make it into the manager's recommended budget. These charts, which also are in your budget copy, just kind of show expenses by the area in the general fund. If you look at the left side, you know, we've got three big departments: police, DPW, and fire, as you would expect. Administration is everything that's the manager, finance, clerk, assessor. So there's a number of departments built into there. Expenses by type, again, wages are about 45% and benefits about 24%. So again, about 70%, as I mentioned, are people. That's what the city uses to deliver services. A couple key issues in the general fund. Fire and EMS, this is a repeat from last year. You know, we're exploring collaboration and possibly creating a fire authority or district, hoping to finalize that plan in the coming months. We know that we need a ladder or pumper truck replacement. That could look a little differently if we do enter into a fire authority or a fire district, so it's kind of on hold right now. If that doesn't go forward, we're going to have to at some point probably do a voted bond to pay for those. And we would cross that bridge when we get to it. That's the plan that's been in place for a while, but it's just kind of on hold right now. And then there are still some fire station needs. Most of the main exterior work has been completed. The building looks great. I think Chief Herndon's very happy with that. There are several other projects planned. There's still some exterior site work that's going to get done. So, you know, trying to maintain that building, which was just recently added to the National Historic Register. Health insurance. So we talked about the increase we got this year. We moved to Priority Health several years ago from a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan because they had big increases. And we've had very manageable premium increases since then. And we have a cost sharing formula in place. But this renewal was just kind of out of left field. We were expecting it to be high, but not anywhere near that high. And based on the data that we reviewed, which isn't complete because we are a small group, so we don't get a perfect look at our utilization, our group demographics and experience are fairly favorable, we thought, and so did our broker. So that kind of came out of left field. But Michigan planners, they're experts. They're going to be looking at alternatives. They're going to bring that to us. I think we meet with them on the 15th. One thing to keep in mind, and this has not been an issue for the city, is there was a statute passed a number of years ago that basically caps the amount of money that a public employer can pay towards health insurance. And you know, there's a lot of provisions in that statute, but we're basically, even with our cost sharing in place, which has the employees paying over 20% of their health insurance premiums, with an increase like this, we're going to bump into those hard caps. And at that point, it all goes on the employees. So depending on what comes out of the meetings and what we can kind of come up with a plan design, we may need to have City Council consider opting out of the PA 152 limits to give some flexibility for both union negotiations and some relief to the employees. The county currently does that. They opt out every year. They still have cost sharing. They're not paying 100% of it, but not even close, but it gives them the flexibility. We've not had to do that, but this might be the year that that's considered. Okay, moving on to water and sewer utility. You can see that nice picture there in the top right. That's the finished clean water recovery facility. It's running very well. We're still learning to run the plant and you know, get it certified and all that sort of stuff. So that's one of the goals. Both the water and sewer funds are funding needed capital upgrades, primarily water main replacements, and then on the sewer side, upgrades to the original plant, which didn't have much done to it when we did the big upgrade. I give the general, or the water and sewer utility from a health rating. The water is excellent and the sewer health rating is good. And this is my subjective measurement looking at a number of factors. So I look at what's the fund balance, what's the ability to raise revenue in this fund, what's the trends for revenue looking like, how well are we able to fund our capital needs, how well are our operations under control. So I don't have this comprehensive checklist that I go down, but it's, you know, my 25 years of doing this, these funds are in fairly decent shape. And the primary reason for that is two things. One, City Council's commitment to sticking to the recommendations in the rate study and having nice, orderly, reasonable inflationary increases every year. That allows this utility to operate and not be in a crisis mode like many places are. And then secondly, the timing of our bond issues. We had on the sewer side, all the sewer separation bond issues kind of fell off. At the same time, we took on all the debt for the clean water recovery facility, so we didn't have to raise rates at all to pay for that new $20 million in bonds because the old ones were falling off and we had the cash flow for it. So well managed, well run, and I think they're in a good place financially, health-wise. Rates this year, again, the rate sufficiency analysis is being implemented, and it's for a typical 6,000 gallon customer, it's a 3.5% increase, $370 a month or $44.44 per year. Key issues, the water and sewer utility is going to have to issue a bond. I suspect that will be coming to City Council sometime in the next 6 to 8 months. It's about a 4-month process. And the reason for that is we have to have money available to basically replace the water main under US 31 when MDOT's doing that reconstruction. It's very old and needs to be taken care of so we don't have problems once all that work is done above it. There's also significant water main work under McKee Street and 4th Street. But we've planned for this. We've known about this for a long time. It was built into the rate sufficiency analysis, and we should be able to handle that without having, you know, any kind of large rate increases or anything. So that'll be coming in front of council at some point. The sewer utility, we're going to look at that a little closer. We may have to piggyback on that a little bit, and there's another possibility down the road of a water bond, but that's uncertain at this point. But again, those were all taken into consideration when we updated the rates with the rate sufficiency study. Moving on to the refuse fund. Good news here is not proposing any rate increase this year. Normally we do that to offset contracted and service cost increases, but we don't need to do that this year. So that's good news for the ratepayers. Everything will remain the same. Curbside recycling program that we put into place last year still continues. That's kind of settled down. We're understanding it a little bit better on what the revenues and the cost structure looks like, so that'll continue to evolve, but is in a good spot. We still have the PFAS issues. We have $100,000 budgeted to do additional response work or investigation. Still waiting from Eagle to kind of see exactly what we need to do. I think we're going to be doing some more test wells this spring to kind of delineate the plume a little bit more, and hopefully Eagle will finally accept that, and then we'll know, is there anything else we have to do for continued monitoring. So I give the health rating for the refuse fund here excellent, with a caveat, because if something really unforeseen happens with the PFAS, that could cause issues, but right now it's doing very well. Moving on to the street fund. So we mentioned last year that the state passed a new funding package, and there was a lot of information out there. We're finally starting to get real information from MDOT in terms of official estimates, and that's what I use to budget off of. I don't try to guess. I want to see it in writing from MDOT. MDOT's estimates are that we're going to get about $300,000 additional dollars in year 1, up to $453,000 in year 3, and it's called for neighborhood roads. There's 2 caveats here, though. One, they haven't provided any final guidance on that. So right now we have the neighborhood road funds being recorded in the local street fund. They haven't said if we have to record those separately. They also are a little bit uncertain if their estimates of when the funds are going to come in is actually going to pan out, because of some issues with litigation on marijuana revenue that is supposed to be part of this funding source, and also the timing of when these payments come in. So those numbers could slide a little bit out, but it's the best information that we have right now. And that's been very helpful for the local street fund. Calendar year 26, we've got about $3.2 million of street investment, and about $2.2 million of that is leverage. So 2/3 of that is not city funds. It's either grant funds or MDOT funds. This budget aggressively funds asphalt overlays for poor street segments. I know Mr. McCool is very happy about that, and I think they're preparing the list right now. I think the residents found that to be a good use of dollars the last time we did that. US 31 reconstruction engineering planning is well underway. I know the city's been attending monthly meetings for that. There's a traffic study around the new middle school that's being funded. That should happen here relatively soon. And for these 2 funds, I'm giving them a health rating of good. And that's not to say our streets are good. What that is saying is it's a relative measure. Our funds have the funding coming into them is better than it's been in my entire tenure here. And our plan and our process for putting together street projects is better than we've had it before, and it keeps evolving. So we're maximizing the amount of street work that we can do given the funds. We don't have enough funds. So if you're only looking at it through the lens of, well, our roads are still not, we're not gaining, yes, that's not good. But we're doing the absolute maximum that we can with what we have, and the amount of money we're getting is increasing. So that's what I think warrants the good rating. This is in your budget. It just takes a look of the projects that are kind of penciled out. We really don't have fiscal year or calendar year 29 kind of finalized yet, so there's overlays in there, but no real projects at this point. But we definitely have a lot going on in 26, 27, and 28. I think the community is going to get tired of road construction is the kind of the comment that we've been talking about between US 31, the detour route, the overlays, some of the other projects we have. There's going to be a lot of road construction in the next 3 years, and but that's a good thing because the streets need it. And that map that's in there kind of shows the years when stuff is going to get constructed. Oil and gas fund, I give this an excellent rating. This has worked flawlessly since 2008, and I think everybody's really rowing in the same direction with this. But you know, this year the amount that is going to be available for the capital improvement fund is up about $6,000 from what it was last year, so it's doing exactly as it's supposed to. You can see on the chart on the right, the blue section on the bottom is the accumulated royalties. You can see those really aren't growing very fast because those wells' productivity has really gone down. But the red part is what we call the accumulated earnings, and so it's basically pretty much doubled what we have there because of the way we've been managing it. So that's very positive for city capital projects. A lot of communities don't have these. I talk to my peers all the time. They struggle to fund capital projects. They just don't have the money to do it. And so this is really a nice asset of the city for future generations to have. I'm happy to report the marina is doing well. The marina struggled for years. It just seemed like people would skip over it. You know, they'd go to Ludington and then up to Frankfurt. But I think because of a number of issues, a beautiful new facility, brand new docks, a very competent manager, an attentive staff, vibrant downtown, they don't hop over us as much anymore, and the marina has been busier and busier and busier. One thing that's really nice is the debt that we had on the marina building is falling off, and in 2027 we no longer have any debt. It'll all get paid off this fiscal year. So that does two things. One, it lets us reduce the subsidy that was coming in from the capital improvement fund, but because the slip sales and the gas sales and stuff have really ramped up, the marina is self-sufficient. So that's very good. I think it's doing as well as it has ever. And we do have a pump out grant that we're working through. I think we're close to getting that bid out for this fiscal year to replace the pump out facility at the marina, which again is just another nice amenity there. I can say the same thing with the boat launch. We've had 2 or 3 really good years. This is one that's interesting because there's 3 things that determine boaters: weather, fishing, fuel. Those are the 3 things. We got an uptick, I think, after COVID, but we've had really good years. We're building a fund balance in this fund. There's some large capital needs and maintenance needs: the First Street parking lot, improvements at the 9th Street boat launch. But we're slowly building some money to be able to do that for grant matches and that sort of thing. We did install late last year a brand new auto attendant. The one that was there was fully depreciated, but served us well. This new one has a lot more functionality. Should not be down as much as the other one was, and so we're excited to kind of put it through the paces this year. So boat launch is doing well. Our capital improvement fund, you know, it's also doing good, I would say, and the reason I say good is because there's always way more demands for capital projects than this can be funded through this. But because the money going into it is increasing and some of the obligations like the marina transfer are falling off, we're able to do more. And so this year we've got about $487,000 of expense budgeted. Some of it is debt service, but other ones funds listed here and in the budget are just projects that, you know, we wouldn't be able to fund in the general fund this year for sure. So all that stuff we're seeing there is things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And they're all worthy projects, and they're kind of spread around between, you know, buildings and equipment and parks and that sort of thing. Motor pool, this is one that gets an average rating. So the only two funds that I rated average are motor pool and the general fund. And the motor pool is an interesting creature. It was never designed to be totally self-sufficient. We're very fortunate to have it. It helps to buffer year-over-year changes so that we can more accurately and smoothly budget expenses. It was running into an issue. We increased the contributions from the general fund to it over a 3-year period, and we were on a really good track. And then the rampant inflation hit. We saw the cost of police cruisers go from $55,000 up to $80,000, and almost across the board, the cost of this equipment has just gone through the roof. So we've managed, Jeff does a really good job and his mechanic in extending the life of these vehicles. But you can see on this one, you know, the first one, pushed 6 years past expected life for a plow truck. A tree chipper pushed 3 years past its expected life. So we're not just replacing this equipment when the schedule says, oh, time to replace it. They evaluate each and every piece of equipment to make sure that, yes, it needs. And a lot of the times we'll run this equipment to failure. And we, you know, we've seen that. So we know we're getting, you know, the absolute maximum out of it. So that's what's scheduled to be budgeted in the motor pool this year. Obviously, one of the constraints on this is, you know, we have intentionally increased the contributions every year from both the water and sewer utility and the general fund to try to stabilize this. And I think we've been growing those contributions at 5% a year. That may not be sustainable. We may have to back that off. But the caveat there is that's what we did after the Great Recession. That's part of what got the motor pool into some financial struggles. So it's a trade-off. The Downtown Development Authority budget has to be approved by City Council. It is included in the budget document. It showed a modest surplus. Andrew can answer questions about specifics about what's being funded or what has changed, and so I would direct you to him if you have any of those questions. The charts there just kind of show where the DDA gets its tax capture, and the vast majority of it, like 60%, is from the city, but 40% of it's non-city, all the county taxes and things that it can capture. So the city gets to leverage those in its downtown because of the nature of a TIF capture. Okay, this is the schedule for the budget process, very similar to prior years. Tonight we introduced the budget. There's a budget study session next Tuesday. On the 21st, there is a budget public hearing and also a budget study session. And then we've got some optional study sessions scheduled. One is the day after that on the 22nd if needed, and then one the following Tuesday on the 28th. Budget is scheduled to be adopted on May 6th, and it has to be adopted by May 15th according to charter. So we try to make this document as user-friendly as it can be. There's also a capital improvement fund, that same thing. If any of members of council have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or the city manager or a department head prior to, you know, kind of having a study session on the 14th. I think that's always useful to get some of those questions answered. It's not that we don't want to answer them in a public session, but it might help with understanding and help that meeting to go a little bit better. So we're open for that. With that, I'll turn it back over to Bill. I don't know if you have any comments or not.
I'd like to thank Ed and the department heads for all their work on this. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Bradford. Having worked in other municipalities, usually it's just solid numbers. You don't get that narrative and perspective in a budget document, which I think is very helpful. So I would like to have, if I would appreciate questions from council. If, you know, we received the binders last week. As Ed said, getting those ahead of time, we can make sure that everyone gets the same information. It helps the meeting go better on Tuesday, just to kind of have those ahead of time, make sure we get all those questions answered and get the information you need. I look forward to working with council to pass this budget. There's some concerning trends, but it's not something the city hasn't dealt with before. The general fund, we're allowed to levy up to the 20 mills. As Ed said, we're about 60.5 with all the rollbacks that have happened over the years. So yeah, we'll want to just do that introduction, but we'll kind of leave questions till the next meeting. But if you can get those to us perhaps by Friday as a goal, that would be nice, but obviously we're going to have a good budget discussion on Tuesday. There's a couple other items that are going to be on there ahead of time. The amphitheater discussion, also the journeys discussion, some things were scheduled for that date, so we'll handle those, then we'll kind of get into the meat of the study session, which is the budget.
Thank you. Okay, citizens' comment. This is an opportunity for citizens in attendance to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement, limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read.
Dave Melke from Harbor View. It's my residence. My request, I think the counselors all have a packet.
Yes.
Of information. And I would like to see some enforcement done on the issue.
This is just a comment section. It's not a question and answer, so if you have a comment on this, you can.
Yeah. The signage is inappropriate and illegal,
Okay.
basically. So I'm asking for some enforcement. I went through the FOIA process. I cannot find where this organization is a 501c3, where it belongs, where its home is. The only thing you can find is what's written on the billboards that's supplied, like $18,000 over the last few years to this group to, I don't know, further their goals. So I don't see where they've got any skin in the game over there at the senior center. And I would like to see that enforcement is done on the issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else with public comment? No? Mr. Gamble?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Ms. Rosga?
I'm all set. You better write this one down.
I did. Mr. Grabowski?
The only thing I'd like people to know is the water means that they'll be connecting when they do the highway out there. This is what's really putting the prices up on the highway when you're getting $294,000 for one intersection. Estimated cost $3,600,000 for under US 31. Doesn't say what street is intersecting it. And then you get another one that's $910,000. So these streets are really costing a fortune to do this highway. So the budget's got to be reduced to someplace. Thank you.
Ms. Keck?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Ms. Rosga? Or, I'm sorry, Ms. Raditz. Sorry, I'm just making sure you didn't have anything. Ms. Raditz?
No, I just want to thank Ed for the presentation tonight and the opportunity for us to take a look at that and get any questions or specific concerns that we have via email by Friday.
Mr. Smith?
Said exactly what I was going to say. Good job on the budget. It's,
Yeah.
you know, the packet or the binder is easy to read, easy to understand. Appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll have a good time chewing through it and discussing it next week.
Jermaine?
Yeah.
One more thing. I finally see that Gateway is finally started. They got some work going down there. Took it 4 years of them coming up here and us asking them to get started because for a long time I was told they weren't going to get going. Finally, thank you.
I just got a quick question. Isn't the senior center a county maintained building?
It is.
Okay, so we can get Mr. Meikle the information that he needs for that? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Was he talking?